The Indian Parliament, where the country's laws are framed, its future is debated, and people's representatives are held accountable. It is the seat of Indian government, the supreme legislative body, an epitome of freedom and sovereignty of the people of India. This iconic circular edifice is also the repository of India's history, of the rule of the people, for the people and by the people. It occupies a preeminent and pivotal position in India's democratic polity. The Indian Constitution is the longest for any sovereign nation in the world. It is also a comprehensive framework to guide and govern the country of vast and unparalleled social, cultural, and religious diversity. The makers of the Indian Constitution wanted to ensure that the government will be sensitive to public expectations, besides being responsible and accountable. Any Indian can petition Parliament. Indians have the right to petition Parliament and make our members of Parliament aware of their opinion and to request action. Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sunset TV on the Petitions Committee with your host Kriti Mishra. In the next 20 minutes, I will take you through the history, significance, functions of the Committee on Petitions of the Upper House and the procedure to petition. So come along. Petitioning Parliament is one of the basic rights of every citizen. It is the most effective way an individual can directly place grievances before Parliament. The Committee on Petitions is one of the oldest committees of the Upper House and dates back to the Legislative Assembly of the pre-independence era. Committee on Petitions owes its origin to a resolution moved by a member in the then Council of State on 15th of September 1921. The resolution called for setting up a committee on public petitions with powers to take evidence. The government appointed a committee to examine the matter. This committee did not favour giving the legislature the powers proposed in the resolution, but it did find merit in the right to petition the legislature limited to public business. To implement this recommendation, Speaker White constituted a committee on 20th of February 1924 that was known as the Committee on Public Petitions. In 1933, its name was changed to Committee on Petitions. The Committee on Petitions of the Rajya Sabha was first constituted in 1952 with a chairman and 4 members. In 1964, the strength of the committee was increased to 10. The Committee on Petitions of the Upper House was constituted for the first time on 22nd of May 1952 with Jaspat Rai Kapoor as its chairman. Till 1964, petitions could be presented to Rajya Sabha only for those bills that had been published in the Gazette of India or introduced in the House, or where the notice to move for leave to introduce had been received. Rules were amended to widen the scope of the committee on 1st of July 1964. Petitions could be presented on any matter of general public interest.
Parliament is a link between the people and the government, and our constitution, which is the supreme authority from which every organ of the government draws its power and authority, begins with the words "we the people." Right. So the petitions committee is one of the oldest committees of the parliament. In fact, it predates independence, and after independence in 1952, the committee took a formal shape the same year in which Rajya Sabha was established. So now there are two petitions committee, one for the Lok Sabha and one for the Rajya Sabha, with similar functions and similar constitution and similar powers. Now, any citizen of this country, or for that matter any group of citizens, can send a petition to the committee to get any legitimate or genuine grievance addressed against any government entity or against any public authority.
However, the exceptions are, in case of matters that fall within the cognizance of a court of law having jurisdiction in any part of India, or a court of inquiry, or a statutory tribunal, or authority, or quasi-judicial body or commission. Matters that are not primarily the concern of the Government of India, or that can be raised on a substantive motion or resolution, or for which remedy is available under law, rules, regulations, or bylaws made by the central government or by an authority to whom power to make such rules, regulations, or bylaws is delegated. The chairman of the Rajya Sabha is the principal spokesman of the House and represents its collective voice to the outside world. He is the custodian and guardian of the rights and privileges of the House and its members. According to the rules, the chairman shall, from time to time, nominate a committee on petitions consisting of 10 members. The Rajya Sabha chairman is the guardian of the prestige and dignity of the House. The chairman wields various powers under the rules of procedure of the upper house. To relate to the proceedings of the House, the committees and other matters like questions, calling attention, motion, resolutions, amendments to the bills, authentication of bills, petitions, papers to be laid on the table, personal explanations, and others. The chairman ensures that decorum is maintained in the House and proceedings are conducted in line with relevant constitutional provisions, rules, practices, and conventions. Parliamentary committees, whether set up by the chairman or by the House, work under his guidance. He appoints their chairpersons and issues necessary directions on the procedure and work. He also nominates members to various standing committees and the department-related parliamentary standing committees. The chairman of the Rajya Sabha is himself the chair of the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee, and the General Purposes Committee.
In a representative democracy, you and I vote in general elections to elect our public representatives, which are our members of parliament. These members of parliament then represent our viewpoints, our views and aspirations in the national legislature. But there is another mechanism by way of which we can get our voices heard directly in parliament. And this mechanism is through the way of petitions. Whenever we are concerned about a specific issue that deals with the government of India or that deals with an issue of public interest, we can send in our petitions to Parliament. These petitions are examined by the Petitions Committee of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. These committees are one of the oldest in our legislative system, and they started out during the term of the first Legislative Assembly prior to independence. The work of these committees is extremely important. While Parliament has a number of subject committees that deal with the individual functioning of the different ministries of the Government of India, the Petitions Committee of Parliament can receive petitions which are across the subject range of what the Government of India does.
A petition once received in this section is adjudged vis-a-vis the general form of petition set out in first schedule. If it conforms to the prescribed format, it is treated as a petition, else it is processed as a representation. Rule 140 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business in the Upper House states that full name and address of every signatory to a petition is authenticated by the signatory, if literate by their signature and if illiterate by their thumb impression. Petitions received through email are also considered, provided the scanned version of the physical copy of the petition bearing the petitioner's original signature along with the name and address is attached with the email. Once it is prima facie established that the issues raised in the petition constitute a matter of general public interest and primarily concerns the Government of India, the petition is then forwarded to the concerned ministry or department seeking their comments to decide the admissibility or otherwise of the petition. Once views or comments from the concerned ministries or departments are received, they are forwarded to the petitioner for his information. The petitioners may also submit a rejoinder that is again forwarded to the concerned ministries or departments for their comments.
First responsibility is to ensure that this is widely disseminated. So I will be definitely taking help of media and you as well and social media particularly, so that people across the country, particularly in rural areas, particularly in the tribal pockets of this country, they do know that there is an alternate mechanism available to them beyond the executive grievance redressal mechanism, beyond the courts. So the legislature, in fact the Constitution of India itself provides that under Article 350 that any citizen of this country can petition the Parliament. So that would be my first and foremost priority.
The views and comments received from the concerned ministries or departments are then judged in the light of the issues raised in the petition, as well as Rule 138 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business relating to the scope of petitions. After rigorous examination, if it is found that the issues in the petition do conform to the conditions laid out in Rule 138 and that the issues require greater examination, a proposal regarding admission of the petition is submitted to Chairman of the Upper House. Having obtained the approval of the Rajya Sabha Chairman, the petition stands admitted and thereafter presented to the Rajya Sabha. Once presented or reported to the Upper House, the petition is referred to the Committee on Petitions for examination and report. Rule 152 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business in the Council of States allows the committee to decide its own course of deliberations. This could be through interactions with the petitioner, domain experts, representatives of the concerned ministries of the Government of India and other stakeholders. Further, the committee can consult reports on specific complaints made in the petition. After examining the entire range of issues, the committee suggests remedial measures either applicable to the case that is being reviewed or to prevent such cases in future.
I would like to also make a distinction between a petition and a representation. Right. So petitions are usually matters of general public interest and similar to a PIL, right? And this committee also has quasi-judicial powers, in the sense that it can summon anyone, any public authority or any government servant. Representation can be submitted by citizens, by private citizens, in case they have any grievance of a personal nature which they would like to be redressed. So in that case, the committee usually sends those representations to the respective ministries or the state governments and expects their response. And in most cases, that's what my study has told me. In most cases, the ministries are receptive of the representations, and then mostly it gets resolved. The petitions usually take longer because there is a formal process. The petition has to be examined by the secretariat, then by the committee, then it has to be presented to the House. In case a petition has been countersigned by a member of Parliament, then the member of Parliament will be presenting it in the House. Otherwise, the Secretary General will be presenting. then the concurrence of the chair would be required to take it up for detailed examination. In that eventuality, then oral evidences are taken. The petitioner is asked to come and make his submissions or her submissions. Government departments are then asked to make their submissions. Stakeholders are invited. Experts are invited. Finally, an action taken report is received from the ministry, which is mandated within 6 months. Finally, the committee then makes a report, which is then presented to the House.
The quantum and quality of work done by the Committee on Petitions, particularly in the last few years, has been acknowledged at all levels: social, economic, political and government. The petitions examined by the committee in all these years have covered a wide range of issues of public importance with socio-economic and political implications. The committee's reports to the House are on diverse subjects, from the reorganization of states to pollution of air and river, to the grant of dearness allowance to pensioners. The reports have also dealt with the revision of pay scales of school teachers, problems faced by students, various categories of handicapped persons, women, weavers, tobacco growers, tribals and fruit and vegetable growers.
Petitions sent by citizens to Parliament sometimes highlight areas where key legislation is required and where there is an existing gap in legislation. For example, about 10 to 15 years ago, the Rajya Sabha Petitions Committee received a petition regarding a regulatory framework that should be there for registering medical establishments in the country. In 2010, a bill was introduced in Parliament which actually implemented some of the suggestions that were made in the petition. Another example of the Petitions Committee highlighting an important national issue is on the issue of one rank, one pension. This was something that was sent to the Rajya Sabha Petitions Committee in 2012 in the form of a petition.
The topics touch all segments of the society, including irregularities and malpractices in medical colleges run by private bodies, protection of human life and environment, improvement in working and service conditions of various categories of employees, grant of rehabilitation benefits to refugees, rise in prices of essential commodities and fixing of remunerative prices of agricultural commodities. The committee has also reviewed the government's policies in various matters like insurance sector, allotment of liquefied petroleum gas, improper use of funds meant for poverty alleviation programs, central government health scheme facilities to pensioners outside central government health scheme covered areas. It has also looked into problems of adulteration of petrol and diesel, overall upliftment of unorganized construction workers and migrant labourers, regulatory mechanism for private nursing homes or clinics, stringent penal provisions for production or distribution of spurious medicines, and pension to veteran artists. Other tasks have included evolving consensus and national debate on adolescents' education program, integration and empowerment of leprosy-affected persons, and even the reasonable restriction on the use of mobile phones. Illustrious parliamentarians have been at the helm of this committee. They include Chandrasekhar, the 8th Prime Minister of India, was chairman for 2 terms, 1968-69 and 69 to 1970. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the former 2-time Prime Minister of India, was chairman of the committee for 1990 and 1991. Sushma Swaraj, the former External Affairs Minister, was chairperson during 1994-95 and 95-96. S.R. Bommai, former Supreme Court Judge, Chief Minister of Karnataka and Union Minister for Human Resource Development, was chairman during 2000-2001 and 2001-2002. M. Venkaiah Naidu, the former Vice President of India, was chairman of the committee during 2006, 2007, 2008 and 2009. The decisions of people decide the functioning of the government in a democracy. Central to this idea is the significance of the individual or the citizen, which in turn means that the government and other public institutions must have the trust of citizens. The Committee on Petitions enables citizens of India to participate in decision making, thus making it the most important symbol of Indian democracy and a key feature of our constitution. The fundamental role of the Committee on Petitions is in addressing issues of public interest. And in this role, the Committee on Petitions of the Upper House stands out distinctly. Its key feature is to make available to the public a high-powered mechanism of parliamentarians to look into their issues without overwhelming procedures. Its performance speaks for itself in the quality of its reports and recommendations. Well, viewers, that's all I had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sunset TV. Goodbye for now from my side.